and W2. That means two unknowns values are there. Now here W1 actually, if you see, we take for each test vector the first component. So it is a test vector for which xi1. That means it is the first component of the first test data, right? And the lambda I is for which we know the constant. So we have to only two equations that we can obtain, W1 and W2, considering the first component and second component. So this will give you the result of W1. Now in this case, as you see, W1 that can be obtained as minus 6.64. And W2 also using the same lambda I, yi, xi2, that means for the vector, that is the second component, that is minus 9.32. So this way, for right an unknown, okay, for a test data, we will be able to calculate right W1 and W2, and which is actually minus 6.64 and minus 9.32 here, right? Now here you see this is actually the equation of a of your hyperplane for which W1 x1 plus W2 x2. Now there is again B. Now B value can be calculated if you consider the B calculation is actually right. B calculation is W dot x plus B equals to 1, right? So in that case B1 equals to 1 minus W dot x1, where x1 is the for first support vector. Similarly, if we take into account the second support vector, because there are two support vector x2. Now if I apply W dot, W already we have learned in the last right calculations, x1 is the one support vector that is given to you, and W dot x1 is a vector product actually, dot product. So it will give you this, right? So here 7.93. Similarly B2, because it is this is the B value satisfying the first support vector. This is the B2 satisfying the second support vector. Then it will give you this value. Now here B1, B2, if there are more support vector, then B3, B4, all these things will be there. Now fortunately in this case, both B1 and B2, as we see, the same value, but it may not have, right? For some example, you may not get the same value. It is usually not same values, right? In that case, what you can take the average of all the value, and that will be the B value. So in this case, even if we take the average of the two values, so B will be calculated as this one. So therefore, we shall be able to calculate all the unknown parameters so far the hyperplane is concerned, namely W and B is obtained. And therefore, this is the equation of your hyperplane. This is the equation of your hyperplane, and that is actually the problem that we have solved. And this is actually your linear SVM, right? This is actually your linear SVM model, right? And for any unknown x, right? Any unknown x which is defined with say xi, x1 and x2, right? So if we apply here, it will return you a sign, positive or negative or 0. And based on this sign, we can decide that this x unknown vector belongs to which class, plus class or minus class. So this is about the linear SVM, and this is the example. For an example, one unknown vector that is given to here, this is one, and right, and we have to test in which class it belongs. So this is your support vector, and delta x is actually decision, right? Decision equation. So W dot xb, and as you see here in this case is negative value. So that means this actually vector lies on the negative side. As you see here, so 0.5 it is like this. Sorry, 0.5 it is 0.5 and 0.5 maybe it is here. So this actually say that it is around like this. Okay, so this actually say that it is in these sides, right? And that is why it is the negative side. And you can take any other value randomly and check it, and then it will tell you in which class it belongs. Okay, and that's all. Okay, so this is about the linear SVM, and what we have learned so far, that the concept of SVM, and then linear SVM, right, and then binary class classification. So we have the discussion about how the binary class classification can be done using SVM concept. Now, so far binary class classification is concerned, it is very good, absolutely not an issue. Computationally also, okay, it is efficient, but there is an again problem. The problem is that many real life data that needs to be classified not necessarily belongs to binary class data. That means there may be the data with more than 2 classes, right? So this is the problem, therefore multi-class classification problem. Now here question that arises is that, so how we can solve the multi-class classification problem, or how we can build a model for multi-class classification, data classification. Okay. Now, good point is that the same linear SVM which is suitable for binary class classification also can be applied to solve the multi-class classification problem. I repeat, the same linear SVM which we have used to classify binary class data can be applied to solve the problem of multi-class classification problem. Now let's see how. Okay, in this regard, there are two strategies. One strategy is called one versus one strategy. Popularly, it is called OVO strategy. And the second strategy, it is called one versus all. It is called the OVA strategy. So these two strategies are very much popular, out of which OVA, one versus all, is a better strategy than the OVO. Now let's first learn what are the two strategies, and then we can come back to the critical discussion or comparing the two strategy later on. Now one versus one strategy. Now you see our objective is what? We want to classify multi-class data, right? And how we want to do that? We want to do that using the same linear SVM which we have used to classify binary class data. Now the idea is, you have given a training data, right? And for this training data, what you can identify easily, that we can identify easily considering any two class, right? And then we can take out all the data which are belong to only two class data, particular two class data, and ignore all other data. I repeat it again. You have given a training data, your training data with multiple classes, say plus, minus, and star. These are the three classes level. Okay. What is the strategy? Strategy is that out of this training data, only consider those are the training data which are belongs to only plus and minus class. Ignore all the training data which belong to cross class. Obviously, this will give you a fewer data. Now, what you can do is that you can again apply your linear SVM, but only limited to plus minus. So there is a one hyperplane you can have, and then corresponding to that hyperplane. So del 1x is the one decision. Okay. Next is ignore plus, take minus and cross. Right? It takes only the training data set which belongs to the class minus and cross. And then give another hyperplane, right, using same approach that we have discussed, linear classifier. Okay, so now considering plus and minus, del 1x is a decision maker. Now considering minus and cross, you can obtain another second two decision maker corresponding second hyperplane. Next you consider plus and cross, right? Ignore the data which belong to the class minus. And this will give you another training data, right? Subset of the training data, and using that subset of training data, you can give another hyperplane, say third hyperplane, and for that third hyperplane, you can have another decision maker del 3x. Okay, I request to please mute your microphone. Some people are, I don't know whether they open their system and then left the terminal and then, okay, it is. Actually, they are not in the, right? Please mute your microphone. I'm getting noise from your some of your end. Now, if there are n number of classes, then how many such hyperplane needs to be considered, right? So taking two right, class data at a time. So there are all possibility NC2 pairs, right? This means that NC2 number of subsets are there corresponding to only 2 class data, and those corresponding to so many what is called the classifiers, or so many support vector machines, or so many hyperplanes, or so many decision makers. That's all. Now, then what will be your decision then? Delta 1x, delta 2x, and delta 3x. Now, out of these things, you will see one will give one symbol and other will give you always the different what is called the values, right? Say for example, delta 1x gives positive value, and delta 2x and delta 3x all gives you the negative value. Now, if the delta 1x gives positive value, then you can say that this is positive class, right? And then other will say, okay,
Sir,
so
hello.
this should not be considered, or
Sir, you are
it
not
can be
audible
negative.
properly. Can you please
So,
mute the
acha, okay, could you please unmute your microphone? Could you please unmute your microphone? It is actually making noise to others also. So what I want to say that you will find many hyperplane as you shown here in the figure. So for the 3 class problem, there are 3 hyperplanes because here 3C2 and then some number of hyperplane, and it is there. Now the decision that you can obtain is that, right, that we can take the del x values for each there. Now if there is a class I, right, for which del I, that means the ith decision maker, right, give you a same sign for all j. All j means for with respect to all other class. Then without any hesitation or unambiguously, we can say that x is in class I. So this way, so okay, so del, so in which class a unknown data belongs to can be decided. Now this is the OVO strategy. Okay, so you please go through the slide again so that you can understand the concept. You can take some examples so that you can better, right, get the confidence about it. Anyway, this is the procedure about the OVO strategy. But OVO strategy suffering from a very serious problem. The serious problem is that for k equals to 3, that means 3 class data, right? So only the 3 classifiers are to be built. That means your building the model will be multiplied by 3 times. Then the single model building. So the cost will increase as the number of classes will increase. So if there are 5 classes, so 5 times it will increase the training time. And then little bit there is an increase of testing time because we have to test out of so many decisions that it will return and then take the which is in favor of this one. Okay, it is actually the concept that we can take the majority voting. So okay, considering majority voting is not a big issue here. But anyway, both training time and testing time will increase. But anyway, the idea is that if you have only few, if it is not binary class, but multiple class and having only few number of multiple classes are there, then OVO strategy you can think for. But for large number of multiple classes, OVO strategy is really an inefficient method. So we cannot use it, right? So as an alternative to OVO strategy, right, there is another strategy. It is called the one versus all strategy. It is easy to understand. It is even better strategy also compared to OVO. How it is better, we can discuss it. But first, let us learn about what is the OVA strategy. OVA strategy concept is again the subset of training data that needs to be considered like OVO, but in a different manner. What is the idea? Idea is that you take any one class, say I, right? Then take all the training data belongs to which class I, and then all other training data belongs to other than ith class, make them say another class, only one class. So you can just change the class level, right, to all the data which belongs to other than ith class. So it become the 2 class problem. and then we can have a decision maker delta ix corresponding to that hyperplane form. So you can, if there are k number of classes, so according to this OVA strategy, we have to build only k classifiers. This is in contrast to KC2 classifiers. I repeat again, there are k classes are there for your training data. Then according to OVA strategy, KC2 number of hyperplanes needs to be modeled. But in case of OVA strategy, only k number of hyperplanes needs to be modeled. So it is KC2 versus K. Definitely for a larger values of K, KC2 is always a greater right values than the K values. And that is why OVA strategy is a better right strategy than OVO strategy. The number of classes is much higher. So OVA we apply if K value is within 2, 3, 4 or like so. And OVA we can apply if the number of classes beyond 5 or so. Now let's see, we have learned about the 5 classifiers. If the 5 classes are there, then what should be our decision? Now the decision is that for each classifier, you test your unknown vector, right? And then it will give you, so delta, so 5 different, what is called the decision values. Out of these 5 decision values, you take which gives you the maximum values to you. And if it gives the ith values at the maximum, then we can take a decision that it belongs to ith class. So here is the concept. So del ix, that is the decision value obtained from the ith SVM, and then out of all the decision values, take that del ix for which it gives a maximum. And if it is give you the jth value, then we can say that the unknown vector x belongs to the class j. So this is the concept of OVA. Here again, you see test time is also not a very rigorous procedure. It is just simply taking all the decision values, take the highest value, and highest value obtained from the, if it is obtained from the jth decision maker, then we can take the decision that the unknown data belong to jth class. Now this concept that we use to decide the fate of an unknown vector is called the Maker's theorem. So this is the Maker's theorem. Okay. Now we have learned about how the binary class.
Hello, sir. Can you mute the mic of all of the student? Can you disable the mic, sir?
I can do that.
Yes, sir. Please, sir, because for 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, I can do that. Okay, I can do that. Okay. I don't know why people are. Okay, you can send me a chat if you want to ask any question. Chat is open, right? I can get the chat. Okay, if you have any question, type your question on the chat box. Okay, I am currently disabling the mic, but anyway, I will be enable it just before the end of class to take some questions. Okay, so this is the concept that I wanted to convey to you, that how the linear SVM can be modeled to classify binary class data, and then finally the same models how we can apply to solve the multi-class classification problem. So those things that we have discussed about it. Now our next question, which is very important, that if your data is not right applicable to linear SVM. Now you can ask me, when I say that my data is not applicable to linear SVM. One day some of you have asked the question, if some data is in an overlapping manner, right? Here is a picture that okay, it is in overlapping manner. Now this is the overlapping manner comes into the picture because here data actually is not right linearly separable, right? Because we can take one classifier, it is like this to classify into two category. Another classifier, maybe I can take this into this one. So you see the boundaries, those needs to classify the data are non-linear boundaries actually. So non-linear boundaries, as you know, linear SVM always lead to a linear boundary. So if your data is in an overlap type, which actually needs some non-linear boundary to separate two regions, for example, say consider binary class again, right? Binary class but non-linearly separable, right? Then definitely linear SVM will give you very poor result. It will be very poor means, okay, maybe 30% or 20% or maybe 50% at the most the accuracy. So it is actually not a good classifier then. Now, so this nonlinear SVM, therefore there is a need to decide how the nonlinear boundary can be obtained if your data is not linearly separable. Now here is a picture. Now in this picture, as you see, the first figure tells you the data which can be linearly separable, and here a linear, right, a linear boundary that we can do, and this is your hyperplane. On the other hand, this is the figure that you can see how your data it is there. We cannot have any linear boundary here to classify the data, but we need one non-linear boundary. It is like this. Now, so this nonlinear boundary should take the form something other than w dot x plus b equals to 0. Okay, now here let's see whether we can have any idea by which w dot x plus b not equals to 0. Other than this, we can have some nonlinear expression so far this thing is concerned. Now here the idea is that linear SVM, it is not possible to solve the overlap data or the data which are not linearly separable. But here is a good point. Good point is that even the linear SVM which we have learned, can also be applied to solve the data which are not linearly separable. Now this is again very surprising, right, comment of course to you, but it is good that this means that, right, that means you can conclude that linear SVM is so powerful, it is so powerful that we can use it to solve multi-class classification problem, and it is also will be used to solve the non-linear or not linearly separable data also. That means it can also help you to solve the non-linear SVM problem like. Now we will see exactly how this is possible. Now there are two procedures. One is linear SVM with soft margin, which I want to avoid it because time will not permit, and then I will not be able to conclude the whole topics also today. One more class we will take it, and that will be after the window test is over. Anyway, so I'll only consider nonlinear SVM formation, how it can be done. Soft margin I'm skipping it, and you can take your own time to go through the slides. Slides are it is a well planned slides, so you can go through the slides and you can easily understand about it. It is the same concept that we have used Lagrangian, but with some additional modification in the Lagrangian multiplier, which I show in equation 28, where in addition to the Lagrangian multipliers, it considers psi I. They are called the slack variables, and then actually it becomes little bit computationally more expensive, but it can solve it. But this problem, you know, is the same concept, the way we solve the linear SVM using LMM, it is also like this, but adding one more constant to the Lagrangian, that's all, and it is a bit computationally expensive. But one limitation of this approach, that is why I don't want to discuss in details, is that it is applicable to those non-linearly separable data which are not so much non-linear. That means only a very, it is not that too much zigzag, right? It is only slight zigzaggy is there. Then only the soft margin SVM really works for you. Otherwise, it is not a good approach. Okay. So therefore, we have to think a better idea so that how we can think about it. Now here in this figure, if you check this figure, then you can find it that this is the one example of linearly separable data. So it is a linear SVM. But here an example of how the nonlinear hyperplane looks like. So if your data is like this, then you see this is the equation of a nonlinear hyperplane, right? Because it is like this. Now this nonlinear hyperplane in 2D region, as you know, it can be modeled using an expression like a equation of a hyperbolic or parabolic line. Okay, so it is equation of a parabola, right? It is equation of a parabola, and equation of parabola takes the form y square equals to, right, some ax plus b in this form look like. Actually, this is actually satisfy this kind of equations. On the other hand, this is another example of non-linearity. In this example, as we see, all these regions are here and another class which belong to the outer region. So it is actually a convex region, we can say, and there is an inner region and outer region. And then you need a classifier to classify data which look like this. So this is another example of non-linearity. Now, can you tell me what is the equation of this type of, right, curve? Anybody can tell? This is the equation of a parabola, right? What is the equation of this one? Anybody, please? Oh, sorry, I'm just okay. Okay, muted my mic. That is why I'm not able to see. Anyway, so what I'm telling that this is the equation of an ellipse look like, right? So x square by a plus y square by b is equals to 1. This is the form of the nonlinear things are there. So if it is y equals to ax plus b, and if it is y square equals to ax plus b, then this is actually x square by a plus y square by b equals to 1. So there you can tell that, okay, in this case we could know the two model parameter a and b. In this case also you can tell me two model parameter a and b. In this case also you can tell me two model parameter a by b. Then you can tell me, then what is the wrong with that? I can think that, okay, this is one. But how you can think that your nonlinearity take this form, or your nonlinearity take this form, or your nonlinearity takes the other form also, like this one, or maybe any other polynomial form? So if the different form, then again different representation of the hyperplane, and then different unknown parameters come into the picture, then you have to try all possibilities. That means getting one drop of water from a large sea lake, and it is very difficult. It is not a good choice. It is actually a brainless method. It is a brute force method, it is called. So brute force method really not workable so far the big data analysis is concerned. So this is not a good solution, but there is a solution which we can find it, and that solution, right, I will discuss from the next class onwards. Okay, so next class onwards we shall discuss the item that I shall discuss about that how the non-linearity, right, can be managed or can be handled with the help of simple linear SVM itself. And in this regard, there is a concept called the kernel tricks, right? So kernel tricks, we shall learn it, and then finally we shall discuss how the large set of training data that is given, and even though you know whether linearly separable or non-linearly separable, then how to deal with that one, right? So you can try with linear SVM, you can try with non-linear SVM, then you can take a decision. But there should be some good, right, strategy by which we can check whether data is linearly separable or not, and after checking then you can go for solving the linear SVM. But if you see that data is not linearly separable, then we can think for nonlinear SVM using kernel tricks. So in the next class I shall discuss about the concept of kernel tricks, and then the rest of the point that I will discuss. There are around 50